Ahoy Captain, and welcome to this masterclass of CII, the Carbon Intensity Indicator by IMO. I'm very excited to share with you all that I know and hopefully all that you need to know about CII, plus show you the free to use calculator. In this masterclass, which will be quite lengthy I'm afraid, we will dive into the following. First we'll start off with about CII. We'll cover the basics of course and show you the process, the annual process of admitting CII. Secondly, we'll show you the calculations that have to be done or are involved. You could also have it done, of course. Thirdly, we'll discuss costs and compliance, or cost and non-compliance, and also show you what you have to do in case of non-compliance. But I can tell you up front, impact is not significant, and there should be easy ways to cope with non-compliance, at least until 2026 if we look closely at what is stated. And then fourthly, we'll close out with some frequently asked questions and show you the resources or references that we have used. Before we start, however, a few disclaimers from our side. First of all, the masterclass is comprehensive but not complete, and that means that there's only so much we can fit into a single masterclass. We've decided to focus on the most important information, not all the information, but it should be available in the accompanying guide, which you can download as a PDF. Secondly, it is ship type and not ship specific, and that means that we don't know your vessel or your ship. So please bear with us if we make assumptions that do not fit your vessel exactly. Again, the masterclass and the guide should be able to fill in that picture. And then thirdly, it is subject to change. That means that please cross-reference it with the latest information from IMO to make sure that everything is correct. And lastly, we just like to let you know that we are independent and do not represent any type of organization, class, IMO whatsoever. We're simply here to make your life easier. And as part of it, we also make our free to use help desk available in case you need any more help, guidance, or if you have any questions at all. Feel free to use the help desk by simply clicking on this button on our website. That being said, let's go to part 1, all about CII. And we always like to start with the bigger picture, or why it is important. And what you should know is that the CII is a measure by IMO in order to achieve greenhouse gas reduction targets, greenhouse gas targets. As you can see here, we have the IMO annual greenhouse gas emissions targets, or actually you could call them decarbonization targets. And what they have stated is that they aim for between 20 and 30% reduction by 2030, 70 and 80% reduction by 2040, and 100% reduction by 2050. Those are the total global shipping emission reduction targets, which is quite a lot. And the CII is one of the measures that IMO has in order to at least track, monitor, and hopefully also achieve said reductions. And to provide you with a bit more context, the CII is part of the Ship Energy Efficiency Management Plan, also by IMO, specifically part 3. So in 2012 there was the first SAMP, Ship Energy Efficient Management Plan, part 1, for all ships above 400 GT. 2019 IMO DCS was included for ships above 5000 GT. And now since 2023 IMO included CII and also extended EEDI and EEXI for specific ship types. We'll show you later on which ship types CII applies to. Great. Now we have some context. We know why it's important, but what is CII exactly? CII is a number. You get it by multiplying the annual fuel consumption with the CO2 factor of the fuel used, which results in the total amount of CO2 emissions, and you divide it by the annual distance sailed multiplied with the ship capacity. You also multiply it by correction factors if you have any, but that is ship specific. So if we look into an example, as you can see here, it's expressed in grams per nautical miles sailed multiplied by metric tons. If you have the correct ship or correct ship, some ship types use gross tonnage, others use deadweight, most use deadweight. multiplied by the correction factors, and the result for this example is 4.60 grams per metric ton nautical mile, or nautical mile metric ton. And this number is then transformed into a rating. So this number is referenced with a reference value per ship type according to your ship specific information, and the end result is a letter. So we go from a number to a letter each year. More on that in the calculations and the compliance, but basically when we calculate the number every year, we reference it with a certain value and the end result is a letter. And this letter is quite important because based on the letter, you either have non-compliance or compliance, but more on that later. CII only applies to ships above 5000 GT of the following ship types that you can see here, and all other ship types are for the moment excluded, but perhaps in the future they will or could be included. So if CII applies to you, what do you have to do specifically per year? Let me show you. The annual process, requirements and the impact on your operations are briefly as follows. First, you have to update your Ship Energy Efficiency Management Plan Part 3. That needs to be updated regularly. And secondly, you have to input all the information or the fuel capacity and distance annually into IMO DCS, or a recognized organization has to do it for you. You do this each year, you calculate the CII each year, and after 3 years or in the following years, you will get 3 ratings, letters. A is good, E is bad, and if you have 3 Ds, you have a low rating, or if you have a single E in a single year, you automatically have a low rating, in which case you are non-compliant. And in that case, you have to write a corrective actions plan or a correction plan. So basically, you are looking for only C's, in which case you are compliant. You get a statement of compliance. You need to store said statement of compliance on board, and that's it. So basically, you don't have to do a lot or anything. You just have to store the SOC on board. In case you have to make a corrective actions plan, well, all you have to do is, from what's stated now, make the plan, after which you should be compliant. More on that later on, but as far as we can tell now, no official actions have been stated by at least IMO regulations, but of course it's up to the recognized organization or class to actually give you the statement of compliance. So you have to make sure that you make a plan that you can follow up on, and that of course class is excited and happy about it. But from what we can say is that all that you need is a plan, which should be okay. Again, more on that later. We are now going into the second part, how to actually calculate the CII, and also show you the free-to-use calculator that you can use to calculate your own CII for your ship easily within a matter of seconds. And this is of course the part where things get excited, but before we really dive into detail, let's first show you the simplified formula again and move from there. So we have the CII number, and this really basically is the entire calculation, at least to calculate the CII attained, which you can see here is expressed in grams per metric ton nautical mile, or nautical mile metric ton. We'll dive into the correction factors later on to show you which correction factors there are. They are explained in more detail into the guide. But for now, we're just going to assume no correction factors, and we're going to also take one ship as example. So let's just call it Boaty McBoatface. So in this example, Boaty McBoatface has 8,500,000,000 grams of fuel consumed each year. Of MDO, no HFO, as I can see here, which has a CO2 factor of 3.114, and the annual distance sailed is 93,690 nautical miles, and the capacity for these types of vessels is dead weight is 61,215. So we get 4.6 grams CO2 emitted per nautical mile metric ton. And as you can see here already, that's kind of like the efficiency factor of the vessel. So the higher your CII, the worse it is, and the lower, the better it is, because you emit less CO2. This is the simplified formula. Let's dive into the more detailed formula, and for that we actually divide the calculation of CII into 3 steps. And you can look into the guide for more information. They're really nicely expressed in a lot of detail. But we have 3 steps. So step 1 is calculating CII attained, which you just saw. Step 2 is calculating the CII reference for your ship. And step 3 is calculating the actual CII rating and expressing the number into a letter. Step 1, as we have seen, is CO2 emissions divided by deadweight or GT times distance traveled, multiplied with correction factors if needed. And if you look here, we have a bulk carrier, GT, deadweight, distance sailed, fuel consumption. Here it's metric ton per year, but everything is expressed in grams per year. So make sure to calculate everything properly and have a look at the numbers correctly. We use HFO, emission factor, resulting CO2 emissions, and then we have a CII attained, as you can see, of 4.60. Alright, step 1. Step 2, calculating CII reference. There we have the following formula. CII reference is a number, A, multiplied by the capacity to the power of minus C. And A and C are numbers based on your ship type. Again, in the guide is a very nice table where you can look up A and C for each ship type specifically. For our Boaty McBulk phase, the bulk carrier, we have 4.745 for A, 0.622 for C, and a capacity deadweight of 61,215. Yeah, so far so good. I see the CII reference is 5, and when the CII attained is actually less than the CII reference, that's good, because we are lower than what is required. So I'm expecting a C value here. Step 3, calculating the CII rating, so that is the letter, not the number. That we do by calculating CII required. That is 100 minus the reduction factor divided by 100. And that simply means that the reduction factor each year, as we saw in the beginning, IMO has stated certain decarbonization targets. So the further we get, the more we need to reduce. So in the future, reduction factor will increase, and then your required CII will be lowered. And then we simply divide the CII attained with CII required. And I believe we have done so here for 2026 as a reference, and further on we will see how it would look like in other years. But with a reduction factor of 11%, we get a CII required of 4.45. Dividing attained with required, we get 1.03, which results into a CII rating of C. So with these steps, it becomes a bit more clear, but these steps need to be followed each year in order to get the CII rating of that year. So let's have a look at how you actually transform that number 1.03 into the rating, the letter itself, C. From number 2 letter, again taking Boaty McBoat phase, the bulk carrier as an example, it can be a bit tricky. Basically what happens is that your CII rating, the number that we just calculated, is compared with different, as they call it, D values. And if that D value, or if your CII rating is below a specific D value, you get a specific rating. So if it's below a certain D1, you get an A. And then if it's below a certain D2, you get a B, D3, C, D4, a D. If it's above D4, you get an E. And those D values have been specified for the specific ship types. So if we look at all the specific ship types that you can see here, so these are all the ship types that have been defined by IMO. And we have specific conditions for gas carriers and LNG carriers. Here we get D values, and we compare the attained, or I should say attained, the CII rating. So that's attained divided by required. You see, even for me, it can be complicated at times. I think for everyone. So you compare that with D1, D2, D3 and D4, and then at some point you can see, oh, it's below that value or that value, etc. And that's done for each year. And as the reduction factor increases, of course, your ratings will slowly get worse and worse, and you actually have to decrease the amount of emissions that you have. So this is quite a lot, and that is exactly the reason. As I said, it's complicated for me, but it can be complicated to anyone. So that's why we made the CII quick scan, and with this quick scan you can easily look up the CII values for the coming years for your ship type, actually your ship specific, because you can put in the information for yourself. It's free to use on the website, so let's go take a look. Everything CII by Sustainable Ships, as you can see here. It's better suited for larger screens, and if you scroll down, one of the first things you'll see is the CII quick scan that you can see here. So what do we have? We have our ship main type. It's now conditioned to cruise passenger ship, but we had a bulk carrier. There you see general bulk carrier. We get the values that we just saw, and there we get the different ratings. And if you show detailed calculations, then you see that we have all the different calculations that we saw here, or the different calculations that we just saw, we also see here, and also how we get all the different CII required attained divided by required, and then CII rating per year. And here you see what I just stated, that each year, of course, your rating gets worse because the reduction factor is increased, which should at some point also increase your CII rating. So at some point in the future you actually have to do something in order to comply, or well, it is expected that of course these values become D values, etc. So what if we only had MDO? Then you can see, oh, okay, then with these values I get a D over there. GT, we'll just leave it now for what it is, GT as well, and then finally distance sailed. So what if we sail a little bit less each year? So let's see, 8,500, 8,500. So there we get, okay, then we get a lot of E's. Need to add a 0, yeah. As you can see, 3 Ds in a row is bad as well. So 85,000 nautical miles per year is roughly the sub border, or the sub limit at which we have to take care or actually start doing something. If you need more help, again, you can download the guide here. So if we click on it, you can see that all the information that we're now showing you in this masterclass can be viewed here. All the calculations that we've just shown are also expressed here. So if you're ever in the mood for some light reading, feel free to go through these 35 pages of incredible fun. Also, you can ask the regulator AI. At the moment, it's a bit of a work in progress, but we're making an AI here that you can ask any questions about CII as well. We fed some information into it, including our guide, so it should be able to give you a lot more information more quickly. So this is the calculator, free to use. Feel free to use it. We hope to get your feedback in order to make it even better. There's only one thing that we now have not discussed with calculating CII, and that is the correction factors per ship specific, or for specific ships. We'll discuss them briefly to show you which ones could influence your CII, but again, we don't know which ship you have, so make sure to cross-reference this with class or recognized authority as well. But let's just show you. So the correction factors, or the correct factors, can fit it on one line. They basically reduce the CII attained. So what happens if we go back to the formulas again, and of course this is the correction factor that we are talking about. They are less than 1, or it should be smaller than 1, in order to positively impact your CII attained. They basically reduce the amount of CO2 emissions that you have. So I'm going to show you something from the regulations. Don't be afraid. These are the correction factors, or actually this is the CII attained with the correction factors included. And if I'm not mistaken, we have voyage correction factors, we have ship type specific correction factors, which you can add, especially if you have tankers, I believe, or tanker types and LNG carriers. And then finally we have EEXI or EEDI specific, ship specific correction factors. So that's voyage, ship an EEXI. This is a lot, and we cannot really include it at the moment in the calculator without getting some more information from your side, or at least some more feedback. Feel free to give some feedback, but if not, look in the guide, look what you have for yourself in terms of EEXI and your ship type specifically, etc. See if there are any ways for you to reduce your CI attained by implementing these correction factors. Please note that these correction factors have to be included upfront each year into your ship energy efficiency management plan part 3 in order for them to be taken into account during calculation. So don't forget to include those. That is everything you need to know about calculating CII. And now to the really fun part, which is the cost and impact of CII on your operations. And I can tell you upfront that lucky us, impact seems to be limited. Of course, it hasn't been around too long, especially considering this is the first year that you have a rating at all. But if we take Boaty McBoatface as an example again, there are basically two paths we can follow, which is compliancy and non-compliance. We get a high rating or a low rating, good or bad. So if we take the compliance path, we only have C's or 2 D's maximum in these 4 years, so up to 2026. You're compliant, you don't have to do anything. You have to store your certificate of compliance or your statement of compliance, of course, on board, but basically you're fine. It's calculated, your class or RO does the work. Should be okay, don't look into it. If you are non-compliant because you have at least 3 Ds, or if you have a single E, that means you are both non-compliant because of a low rating. In that case, what's stated officially is that you have to submit a plan. What's done with the plan and if you follow up with it, etc., is not explicitly mentioned in the regulations per se, but I expect, or one could suspect, class has an opinion about it. But all you need is a plan. So these are basically the two paths to follow. Compliant case, extra administration, additional fees should be limited. Non-compliant case, that could be a different ballpark. Let's look into the costs involved, or at least how to submit a plan. And we used our decarbonizer tool in order to make such a plan. So if you need to make a corrective actions plan, you can use the decarbonizer, and I'll show it in a minute. But this decarbonizer gives you the option to look up different decarbonization values or values measures, look up the value that fits the amount of reduction you need. So if, for instance, you need only a few percent, in this case, you could go for shore power, perhaps solar PV, potentially wind propulsion. Wind propulsion also has some added benefits in for other regulations. And if you really need to increase more and more, you could look into more, let's say, tricky decarbonization measures, which are changing your fuel. Of course, there are plenty of other options to follow, but these are available in the decarbonizer. And if you input your ship name and for your report your email over here, you can get a free report, which is basically, or should suffice, as a corrective actions plan. So you go to your ship, you know what, let me just show you. So here you see the link to the decarbonizer. You can choose a ship type. Well, our Boaty McBoatface was a bulk carrier, so it's a general bulk carrier. Yeah, let's go. So you have step 1, 2, 3, and 4. Fifth step being the report. First we can check, this is our reference ship, to see if all the ship properties are correct. You can fill everything in according to your wishes and make sure that in the end your fuel consumption is roughly according to what's stated here, in order to get a good estimate of your CII. And then we can go to a decarbonize section, and we can actually click and choose the different measures that we want. We can actually, if you go to biofuels, of course, almost 40% is a lot. So we could also opt for somewhat less. So we could also say a 20% reduction target, and then of course it's reduced and our costs are also a bit limited or less than what we would need. So we can play around here, and then we can fill in our email address over here, click on report, and then we get a corrective actions plan basically. And that should be all there is to it. Moving on to the final part 4, the frequently asked questions. And for this, we're going to have a look at the website once again. Going back to sustainableships.org/rules/regulations/CII, if you scroll all the way down through all this beautiful amount of information, we're gonna see how much I still remember of everything. So it's also gonna be a bit of a pop quiz to me. We have the following most frequently asked questions by most people on the different help desks and on the regulator AI. There is a lot more. You can also look them up in the guide or in the references that I'll show you later. Plenty of questions you can ask, but these should be the most important ones for you to know. Most of it, if not everything, we have already covered over the course of this masterclass. So feel free to skip ahead or simply have a great day in advance. So first of all, what is CII? CII is a number transformed into a rating, number to a letter, and it's decreased, or actually decarbonization targets are increased, and thereby your number is decreased each year for which you have to comply. It's an IMO enforced regulation. Yes, also good to note, of course, it's only applicable to ships exceeding 5,000 GT, all cargo, passenger and cruise ships. Oh yeah, that's good to note. At the moment, it applies to only ships carrying goods and passengers, etc. Who knows, perhaps in the future it will also apply to offshore vessels or other ship types. Make sure you have a C at the end of the year. How is CII calculated? Oh boy, this is way too little information, but it boils down to getting your CO2 emissions per year, dividing it by the distance sailed with your capacity. If that's the case, also multiplied by your correction factors. Should be it. You cross-reference that with an applied value for your ship, and you're done. Of course, compare it, divide it, compare it to the letter, but let's keep it simple, shall we? How is CII calculated? Use the quick scan and you're done. To which ship types does CII apply? Here you can see all the different ship types. We actually added one ship type additionally, the Ro-Ro cargo and passenger vessel. We have encountered these. Should be very rare. Maybe we should have just left them out. We've used, if I'm not mistaken, the cargo vessel rules because they are slightly more stringent, but make sure that if you use the quick scan or the calculator or the information that we have provided, that you are indeed applying to the correct ship type, so that you really have a gas carrier according to class, IMO, etc. Of course your class should know this, but please do check. Is verification of the CII to be carried out by the Ships Classification Society, or may this be done by another organization? Can be done by any recognized organization, or should be allowed. May be carried out by another one, blah blah blah. Yeah. It should, however, be the same verifier as for IMO data collection system. That's good to know. So the one checking your IMO DCS needs to be the same. Maybe carried out by another than the one that classes the ship. Okay, so the one handling your IMO DCS should also check fuel consumption and thereby CII. Good to know. Is an additional authorization for the ROs necessary for attained CII verification? No, I don't believe so. If everything that's done are amended, no separate authorization is required. Alright, good. So, I've added these questions, I thought for a different reason, but now I'm getting confused again. That's always the case when you're updating information. But basically, stick to your class or RO, the one handling IMO DCS, because they already have all the information and then they could calculate it for you automatically. Which CII is to be used for a ship which may fall into more than one ship category? The most stringent one, similar to EEDI or EEXI regulation, if I'm not mistaken. The most stringent attained annual operational CII as calculated for the categories the ship may fall into. Okay, good to know. So when you're deciding for a specific ship type of your choosing, this will be a bit trickier. So make sure that you class your ship correctly. Can time in port be included in the voyage period when applying voyage adjustment? No, I believe not, only for ice class. Okay, when an ice class ship sails in ice conditions to and from a port within the same sea area, within the same ice edge, there are some adjustments there. Voyage, ship specific and EEDI, EEXI specific correction factors are explained somewhat in the guide, but if this is the case for you, please ask your class. So what happens to the CII reduction factor R after 2026? If only we knew. We don't. It's unknown. There's an evaluation plan for 2025. What we can say is, of course, 100% reduction in 2050 and 40% in 2030, if I'm not mistaken. Well, that's of course the high end, or maybe I have to check those numbers because I think that might have been changed some time ago. Again, good reason always to contact the help desk for more questions and to make sure that you provide feedback if you think some numbers are incorrect. But at the least we know is that, of course, we're aiming for more carbon or CO2 reduction in the future. 100% towards 2050 seems likely, if not, of course, what we're going for. That would mean that in the end, reduction factor will become 100. So instead of 11%, we will go to somewhat of 100% reduction, fully carbon neutral. We still have, well, not too much time, 25 years or so, in order to achieve set goals. This is the long game. What happens in between, we'll know in about 1.5 years. So that's it for all the different frequently asked questions. And again, make sure to ask the regulator AI or contact the help desk if you directly want to talk with a bald guy in a blue suit with a white shirt on. And before we end, quickly touching you up on the references that we have used, and also the fact that you can download the guide with all the references included. The references are included all the way in the back. There we go, a little further. Here are the frequently asked questions. There you go. Just use them, click on them, download them. They're there for you to use in order to make your life easier. If 35 pages of CII information makes your life easier, but yeah, use it for reference, of course. And that concludes our masterclass of CII, the Carbon Intensity Indicator. It's been quite a ride. I want to thank you for your attention, and I want to just stress again, feel free to make use of all our quick scans, tools, etc. And please contact the help desk in case you have any questions in order to save you time and make your life easier. Because as you have noticed, there are some things that we are continuously working on in order to get you a better experience, but we don't know to give you a better experience if you do not provide us with the feedback. So I cannot stress this enough. Feel free to contact us using the help desk, and as always, have a great day calculating CII. Have fun.